Today we're diving into the creation of a car that earned a permanent place in the history of reliability, the Mercedes-Benz W123. We're going step by step through the entire process, from the first sketch to the final bolt on the production line. This is the story of a car that became an icon. To understand how the W123 was built, we need to go back to the late 1960s. At that time, Mercedes was producing the W114 and W115, good cars, but the world was changing rapidly. Safety standards were becoming stricter, customers expected more comfort, and competitors were not standing still. Within Mercedes, a plan emerged for a completely new mid-size car. A car that had to be not only better than the previous models but also superior to anything else on the market. It had to become the most reliable car Mercedes had ever built. Engineers began with enormous amounts of data collected from tests on previous models. They examined where the metal was under the most stress, where parts wore out faster, and which points caused structural weaknesses. The goal was not to fix problems, but to prevent them. Working groups were formed for every part of the new car. One group focused on the body, another on the chassis, and yet another on engines. Everything was thoroughly studied and rethought. This process took years. It was no rush job. Mercedes had no deadline. The assignment was simple: make the best mid-size car in the world. In the early 1970s, designers began working on the car's exterior. Their task was to create a vehicle that would remain timeless, no aggressive lines, no fleeting fashion trends. The car had to look good even 10, 20, or 30 years from then. Slowly, the design we now recognize began to take shape. The straight shoulder line, the solid front end, the distinctive grille, and headlights that gave the car a friendly yet serious expression. The car radiated calm and confidence. During this phase, clay models and scale models played a crucial role. Designers first sculpted the car in clay, refining every curve and proportion, and then created smaller scale models to test aesthetics and aerodynamics before committing to full production. The wind tunnel was also key. Engineers tested how air flowed around the car. The W123 didn't need to be a sports car, but it had to be stable and efficient. Special panels were added to the underside to improve airflow, and the doors were designed to reduce wind noise. Safety received equal attention. Mercedes applied lessons from their famous crash tests, designing crumple zones to absorb collision energy before it reached the cabin. The design had to look simple, but beneath the surface, it was an advanced structure. By the time the final design was approved, hundreds of sketches and dozens of clay and scale models had proven their worth. The real construction began with the chassis, the very skeleton of the car. Steel rolls, each several tons in weight, were fed into enormous hydraulic presses. These presses applied tremendous force to shape the raw steel into precise components. The process was intense. The sills, wheel arches, and engine tunnel all started as flat sheets of steel, and each press had to form them to exact specifications. Engineers and technicians meticulously adjusted the dies in the presses to ensure that every curve, bend, and flange matched the design perfectly. The goal was not just to shape metal, but to create parts that could withstand decades of stress, wear, and pressure. After pressing, these steel components moved to the welding lines. In the 1970s, industrial robots were far less advanced than today, so much of the work was performed by skilled craftsmen. These experts knew instinctively where every weld needed to be placed. They listened to the metal as they worked, feeling its tension and flex, ensuring every joint was perfect. If a weld wasn't flawless, the part was sent back to be redone. Precision and patience were key, because even a minor mistake could compromise the car's legendary durability. Once welded, the car's floor was placed on a large assembly jig, a stable platform that served as the foundation. From there, Technicians gradually built up the structure, attaching the side panels, roof framework, and front-end sections step by step. Each component had to align perfectly because the structural integrity of the entire car depended on these initial layers. By the end of this painstaking process, the bare body of the W123 stood complete without paint, without doors, without an engine, but already possessing the fundamental strength and rigidity that would make it one of the most reliable cars ever built. It was a skeletal masterpiece, engineered for decades of service. Rust was a major concern in the automotive world of the 1970s, but Mercedes wanted the W123 to be a car capable of lasting for decades. To ensure this, each bare body received an extensive anti-corrosion treatment. It began with a full immersion in a large degreasing bath to remove every contaminant. After this, a phosphate layer was applied to guard against corrosion. The body was then dipped into a primer bath, not sprayed but fully submerged, so that even the hidden cavities were protected. Only after these steps did the body enter the paint shop, where robots applied smooth, uniform layers of paint, while inspectors checked for even the smallest imperfections. Popular colors such as Astral Silver, Icon Gold, and Champagne were selected not only for beauty, but also for durability against weather and road salt. The engines of the W123 were a major reason for the model's legendary longevity. In specialized workshops, raw engine blocks were transformed into precisely machined components. Cylinders were honed with micrometer accuracy, pistons were balanced to exact weights, and crankshafts were finely tuned to minimize vibrations. Once the parts were ready, engineers assembled the engines with extreme care, installing valves, camshafts, gaskets, and fuel systems to exact tolerances. Every single engine was then tested individually, not just a sample. Technicians ran them at low and high RPM, monitoring temperatures, noises, and vibrations. Only engines that passed every test perfectly were approved for installation in the car. The W123 was offered with a range of gasoline engines and the famously durable diesel engines known for reaching extraordinary mileages. The interior of the W123 was designed for simplicity and long-term usability. Seat frames were constructed in dedicated departments, fitted with foam cushions, and upholstered in a variety of materials including fabric, plaid patterns, MB-Tech synthetic leather, and occasionally real leather. Technicians tested each seat for strength and durability before it moved on to final assembly. The dashboard was made from hard plastics resistant to heat and sunlight and fitted with reliable analog gauges that were individually tested. The switches and controls were deliberately mechanical and straightforward, built to last for decades without failure. Once all components were ready, the final assembly began. The body moved slowly along the production line as technicians installed wiring harnesses throughout the structure, followed by brake and fuel lines. The suspension control arms, springs, and shock absorbers was fitted using precise torque settings. The most important moment came when the engine was lowered into place with a large hydraulic arm, followed by the gearbox, exhaust system, drive shaft, and axles. With the mechanical components installed, the interior was added: dashboard, electrical systems, carpets, seats, and door panels. Finally, the doors were mounted and adjusted with meticulous care to produce the signature Mercedes click when closing. Before leaving the factory, every W123 underwent a rigorous testing process. On a dedicated test track, technicians drove each car hard braking sharply, cornering quickly, and listening for any irregular noise or vibration. If anything seemed off, the car was returned to the assembly hall for correction. After the test drive came the final inspection hall, lit with bright lamps to reveal even the smallest imperfections in paint or alignment. Panel gaps, seating stability, and floor structure were all checked in detail, a process that could take hours. Only after passing all inspections did the car receive its final certification label and become ready for shipping. When the W123 launched in 1976, it triggered a surge of demand unlike anything Mercedes had seen. Customers rushed to dealerships, and waiting lists reached years in some markets. Taxi drivers across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa embraced the car not because it was luxurious, but because it was almost impossible to wear out. Many W123s exceeded 1 million kilometers, with some traveling multiple times around the globe. The model became a symbol of reliability and endurance, combining rugged strength with timeless elegance. And that is the story of how the Mercedes-Benz W123 was built. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this detailed explanation, be sure to leave a comment and subscribe for more real automotive stories.